Trial of the falling leaves. The morning after Liang first felt qi move through his veins, the air around the Eternal Nexus Sect was charged with expectation. Mist clung to the courtyards, curling like smoke against the cold stone. The disciples whispered to one another as they gathered, excitement and dread braided together in every hushed voice. Something was different about today. Instructor Cai's summons had carried a weight sharper than usual, and the disciples could feel it. When Cai appeared, the courtyard fell silent. He stood at the platform's center with his staff planted firmly in the ground, his expression as unforgiving as stone. His voice cut clean through the air. You have stumbled through the first form long enough. Breath and stance alone are not proof of progress. Today you will show whether your leaves fall with grace or rot before they touch the ground. Today is your trial. The words struck sparks through the gathered disciples. Some sat straighter, eyes burning with eagerness, while others swallowed hard, fear tightening their throats. Cai turned and pointed toward the tree lean beyond the platform, where the mist thickened between the roots of ancient pines. Each of you will test falling leaf against resistance. Beyond lies the forest. Within it are practice stakes, weighted with iron and carved with inscriptions to resist your strikes. Without qi, you will find them harder than stone. With qi, you may stir them. Enter, strike, and return. Show whether your form breathes life or only wind. A ripple of unease passed through the disciples. Everyone had heard of the practice stakes. Some who had faced them before still bore scars across their knuckles. To stir one even faintly was enough to earn recognition. To leave it untouched was humiliation that lingered. The first pair stepped into the mist, their robes vanishing between the pines. Minutes later, dull thuds echoed faintly, followed by groans and laughter. They returned with bruised hands and bowed heads, their failure plain. Another group entered. This time a sharp crack split the air, and when they emerged, one disciple carried himself proudly, his fist bloodied but his eyes shining with triumph. When Zhao Ren's name was called, murmurs rippled through the crowd. He strode forward with a sneer, his followers whispering encouragement like a tide at his back. The forest swallowed him, and for a long while the courtyard held its breath. Then came a resounding crack, loud enough that even Cai's eyes flickered briefly with acknowledgement. Zhao returned moments later with blood dripping from his knuckles and pride gleaming in his eyes. His followers erupted in cheers. The iron stake he had struck bore a shallow dent, but even that was proof of his strength. Zhao's gaze swept over the crowd until it locked onto Liang. The sneer on his lips sharpened into a challenge. The unspoken words were clear, match this if you dare. Liang, Cai's voice rang out like a gong, sharp and commanding. Step forward. The disciples' whispers swelled. Liang's stomach tightened, his palms damp with sweat. He walked toward the forest, each step heavy with the weight of watching eyes. The mist thickened as he crossed the threshold of trees, damp earth muffling his steps. Shafts of sunlight filtered through the canopy, painting the ground in shifting gold. Deeper within, half hidden in shadow, stood a stake taller than a man. Its surface was scarred from years of strikes, yet the faint spirals etched into its iron core glowed softly, waiting. Liang stood before it and inhaled slowly. The ember in his dantian flickered, faint but present. His limbs trembled from fatigue, but he sank into the stance instructor Cai had drilled into him. Breath is root. Form is trunk. Qi is leaf. He let the words guide him. His arms swept wide. His foot shifted, grounding him against the earth. He exhaled slowly, guiding the ember outward. For a heartbeat, warmth surged through his veins, fragile but alive. His palm cut downward like a branch torn free by autumn wind. The stake shuddered. Not cracked, not broken, but stirred. If you want us to keep making more stories like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Azure Inkblade. Now, back to the chapter. A faint tremor ran through its iron-bound frame, as though acknowledging him. Liang staggered back, chest heaving, palm stinging with the impact. It was not triumph like Zhao's dent, yet joy flared in his chest. He had touched the stake with more than muscle. He had touched it with qi. The forest seemed to fall silent, and then Cai's voice came from behind, cool and unreadable. Better than striking air. Weak, but real. Relief filled Liang's lungs, but it lasted only a breath. From outside the trees came Zhao's mocking laugh, loud enough for all to hear. A leaf brushing iron. Nothing more. His followers laughed with him, and the sound followed Liang back through the mist like jeering spirits. When Liang stepped into the courtyard, his triumph was dimmed but not erased. He bowed to Cai and retreated quietly, ignoring the whispers, ignoring Zhao's smirk. For now, the step he had taken was enough. As dusk bled into the horizon, Cai dismissed most of the disciples. But when Zhao and Liang turned to leave, his staff cracked sharply against the stone. You two remain. The courtyard stilled. The others scattered quickly, eager to avoid being drawn into Cai's wrath, until only the three of them remained. The fading light cast long shadows across the platform. Cai's eyes flicked between them, expression stern. Pride and resentment are poisons, he said. Left to fester, they will destroy you before any enemy can. You will spar now. Not with fists alone. Use what qi you can summon. If your breath falters, so will your form. Zhao's mouth curved into a knife-sharp smile. Liang's heart tightened, but he forced his body to bow, steadying his breath. The duel began. Zhao lunged first, his fists hammering forward like falling stones. Liang dropped into falling leaf, arms sweeping wide. His breath steadied his stance, qi flickering faintly into his limbs. Zhao's strike deflected just enough for Liang to stagger aside, but the impact rattled his bones. Zhao pressed harder, each blow fueled by raw muscle and pride. His strength was overwhelming, and though qi flickered at his core, it faltered under the storm. Liang gave ground step by step, his arms screaming with effort, his chest burning with each breath. Is this your leaf? Zhao spat, his fist flying again. A whisper in the wind. Liang's teeth clenched. Pain blurred the edges of his vision, but he drew a deeper breath, sinking into the rhythm Cai had drilled into him. The ember swelled, faint warmth spilling outward into his limbs. His stance steadied, his arm swept, and this time the air stirred just enough to turn Zhao's next blow aside. It was not power. It was not victory. But it was survival. Minutes dragged into eternity. Zhao's fists flew harder, faster, sloppier as frustration consumed him. Liang's movements were clumsy, yet his breath held steady. Each exhale made his stance firmer, each inhale gave the ember strength. At last Cai's staff cracked against the stone. Enough. Zhao froze mid-strike, chest heaving. Liang collapsed to one knee, sweat streaming down his face, arms trembling from the strain. The silence that followed was broken only by their ragged breaths. Cai's gaze lingered on them both. Liang, your roots are weak, but they hold. Zhao, your trunk grows tall, but hollow. Without harmony, both paths will wither. The words stung sharper than any strike. Zhao's face twisted, fury flashing in his eyes. He spun on his heel and stormed from the courtyard, his footsteps echoing like distant thunder. Liang remained kneeling, his breath ragged, but the ember in his core glowed stronger than ever. In that moment he understood something that Zhao did not. Strength was not only measured in how hard one struck. True strength was measured in how long one endured. The courtyard fell silent as Cai departed, his staff tapping into the night. Liang pushed himself slowly to his feet, his body aching but his spirit unbowed. Above, perched on the edge of a rooftop, the silver-feathered sparrow watched him in silence. Its black eyes gleamed faintly, as though it had been waiting for this moment, as though it had known all along that this trial was meant for him.